Okay, for this tutorial we're going to start on the main CosmoQuest page at cosmoquest.org. We're going to go over to the Do Science menu and click Moon Mappers. We're going to go into Simply Craters. If you've been here before, you've probably already done a tutorial, but you can always hit the Redo Tutorial button in order to refresh your memory on how everything works. We also have a tutorial page up in the menu as well. I'm going to briefly go over the basic functions of Simply Craters and talk about how to mark craters, how to find the rims, and what not to mark as craters as well. So we start off with the basic image. Based on the way that several craters appear, this is a photo that was taken from when the sun was fairly low on the horizon. So we have visible crater rims, tracing out the rim here with the cursor. And within each is a bright white semicircle, like that, kind of like a crescent moon all its own, which is where the sun hits, and a black circle, which is the shadow cast by the opposite rim. Okay, so we're going to start with this largest crater. This is the one I would do first. You make sure you've clicked the Mark Crater tool and start in the center. Click the mouse and drag out that circle, and so you want the solid green line to hit the rim of the crater. And so that's where the light and shadow end. If you want to move it around, you can click Select Marker and adjust the position a little bit. Okay, so you've marked your first crater. Now I want to take a brief detour and show you what not to mark as a crater. So we're going to delete marking and get rid of that. What we've seen happen, because this is a kind of a tricky visual illusion, is sometimes you're going to be tempted to mark this circle, this black circle, dark circle, as a crater. So this is what not to identify. That is the deep shadow cast by this rim on the right side of the crater. The white highlight next to it, as we pointed out before, is the highlight cast by the sun that made it over the right rim. So this is not what you want to do. That only captures part of the crater. I'm going to delete that and put our good marking back up. Rim of the crater. Okay. So now I'll go on to identify what we have are two more pristine craters in this image that I can see. That would be this one. See how I stop the circle just at the crater rim? Click and drag, green circle on the crater. Okay, this next one is a little less sharp, but it's obviously a crater and we want to mark it. Okay, and when one final crater is big enough, remember this little green circle is kind of your standard. You want them to be bigger than that. This one is less sharply defined. It's large, but it's not as clear. The bottom of the rim isn't clear at all in this image, quite exactly where it is. And you have this other crater at about the 8 o'clock position around the rim. So I'll pull this out and find the rim as best I can using kind of the 3 and the 9 o'clock positions, get all the way around. All the remaining craters in this image are too small, so we're going to move on to the next one. Okay, so we're on the next image now. At first glance, you don't have as many big, large, well-defined craters as we saw in the last example. There are two obvious and clear craters. One right here. Whoops. I think that's good. And one right here. Notice this one has a secondary crater that's blocking part of the rim as well. They're which say that the crater is superposed or on top of the rim of the crater. So remember, you want to try and ignore that little crater here when marking the rim of the main crater. Okay, so let's move on down to the bottom right of the image. We have a relatively large crater that's been pretty well degraded to the point where the rim, the walls, and the floor are not sharp at all. So that's this big crater right here. So how do we figure out where the rim of the crater actually is? It's hard, and everyone's answer is going to be a little bit different. We know it's a crater because we see the dark shadow next to the light region, just as we did in the ones we know are craters, the ones that are sharp, dark, light. So that we're going to use to help guide our eye. And we realize that the rim must be outside of the dark and light region. It's usually where the gray color transitions to the same general gray as the rest of the image. So you want it to match kind of that background. So there's no obvious right answer. We're going to start, so if we think the crater is about here, we'll start in the middle and pull out until we've encompassed the dark region and the light region. So I think that's pretty good there. So we use the edge of the shadow on the right side and the edge of the light region on the left side. So this is a case where there's no obvious right answer, and what we rely upon is that several people, many people, will be marking this crater. We'll have slightly different answers, but we can average it together to get a good answer and a good size for this crater. So this is what you run into doing research, scientific research, is you don't always have the right answer. It's not like the professor has the answer set, the answers to the problem set. So this you're on the cutting edge, and sometimes you have fuzzy things like that. So do the best you can, and remember we will be averaging the results from several different people. Just be sure not to mark the little circular shadow as its own crater. Remember, the crater has to be the whole thing, shadow and light part. Okay, at this point I would look around the image and see many other regions of dark next to light, regions that indicate highly degraded or not fresh, not sharp craters. Can pick out 3 of them that are of the right size. So there's this one right here, so dark region and light. Start kind of in the center and pull out to where the shadow ends. Okay, and this one is a very degraded crater as well. Cover all that. And this is another large degraded crater. Okay, and I think that's about it for this image, picking up all the large craters that we can see.